What happens when country music's golden asterisk boy meets daytime? Television's powerhouse in what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview, only to have years of industry tensions explode into the most uncomfortable television asterisk moment of the year. Before we dive into this shocking confrontation that had Luke Bryan walking off set, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story gets more intense asterisk with every minute. Jennifer Hudson leaned back in her signature interview chair, that warm smile spreading across asterisk her face as she welcomed her next guest. The studio lights cast their familiar glow over the set, everything appearing perfectly normal for another episode of her hit talk show. The audience was asterisk buzzing with excitement, phones already out and recording as they always did when a major country star was scheduled asterisk to appear. Please welcome the one and asterisk only, Luke Bryan, Jennifer announced, her voice carrying that distinctive enthusiasm that had made her show such a asterisk success. The audience erupted into asterisk applause as Luke walked out, guitar picked, necklace catching the studio lights, his usual confident stride asterisk carrying him across the stage. But something felt different from the moment he sat down, where there would normally asterisk be easy banter and laughter. There was an almost palpable tension in the air. Luke's smile seemed forced, his posture more rigid than usual as he settled into the guest chair across from Jennifer. Asterisk Luke. It's so great to have you here, asterisk Jennifer began, her media-trained warmth asterisk evident in every word. I have to say, your new album has been getting incredible reviews, and the fans are asterisk absolutely loving it. Luke nodded, his fingers drumming against his knee in a rhythm that didn't match the upbeat asterisk energy the show was known for. Yeah, asterisk, thanks for having me, Jennifer. It's asterisk been a long time coming. This album, lot asterisk of heart and soul went into it. Asterisk, I can imagine, Jennifer replied, consulting her notes with practiced ease. You know, I've been following your career asterisk for years now, and it's been incredible to asterisk watch your journey. But I have to ask you about something that's been making headlines lately. The change in Luke's expression was immediate and asterisk unmistakable. His jaw tightened slightly, and those fingers that had been drumming against his knee stopped asterisk moving entirely. The audience, sensing asterisk the shift in energy, grew quieter, leaning forward in their seats. What exactly are you referring to? Luke asked, his voice carrying an edge that hadn't been there moments before. Asterisk Jennifer's smile never wavered, but there was something calculated in her eyes now. The look of a seasoned interviewer who knew she was about to dive into dangerous waters. Well, there have been some comments circulating about diversity in country music, and your name has come up in some interesting conversations. Luke's laugh was short and humorless. Interesting conversations, that's one way to put it. I mean, you've been incredibly successful in a genre that, let's be honest, hasn't always been the most welcoming to artists who look like me, Jennifer continued, her tone still asterisk friendly, but with an underlying current that suggested she wasn't going to let this topic slide by ice. Asterisk, Jennifer, I think we need to be real careful about where this conversation is heading, asterisk, Luke said, leaning forward in his chair, his southern accent becoming more pronounced as his discomfort grew. I asterisk came here to talk about music, about my asterisk new album, about connecting with fans. Not to get into some political discussion, but Jennifer wasn't backing asterisk down. Years of experience in the entertainment industry of navigating difficult conversations both on and off camera had prepared her for moments like this. Asterisk, Luke. I don't think it's political to talk about the reality of our industry when you have the platform that asterisk you have, the influence that you wield. Don't you think there's a responsibility that comes with that? The tension in the room was becoming impossible to ignore. Asterisk camera operators adjusted their angles, sensing they were capturing something significant. The studio audience had asterisk fallen into an uncomfortable silence, unsure whether they were witnessing great television or a disaster in the making. Luke ran a hand through his asterisk hair, a gesture that might have seemed asterisk casual to viewers, but was clearly an asterisk sign of his growing agitation. Look, asterisk, I've always been about the music. I've never claimed to be some kind of spokesperson or activist. I write songs, I perform, I try to entertain people. That's what I've always done. And that's what I plan to keep doing. But Luke, Jennifer pressed, her voice taking on a more serious tone. When you're one of asterisk, the biggest names in country music, you can't really separate yourself from the conversations happening around the asterisk genre, can you? Especially when those conversations involve the experiences of artists who might not have had the same opportunities that you've had. What are asterisk you trying to say, Jennifer? Luke's asterisk voice was getting sharper now. The asterisk-friendly facade completely dropped. Are you suggesting that I haven't earned what I have? That somehow my success is asterisk illegitimate? Jennifer held up a hand that media-trained composure still intact asterisk despite the rising tension. I'm not asterisk suggesting anything. Luke, I'm asking you to engage with the reality that country music, like many genres, has a complicated history when it comes to inclusion and representation. Asterisk complicated history. Luke repeated, shaking his head as frustration crept into his voice. He said what felt truly complicated was coming onto a show expecting a normal conversation about music, only to feel blindsided by accusations and implications he never agreed to address. The word ambushed lingered between them, heavy and confrontational. Jennifer's expression shifted, the polished warmth giving way to something more candid and far less patient. Raising her eyebrows, she replied that asking about industry issues wasn't an ambush. It was journalism. Asterisk Luke pushed himself halfway out of his chair before sitting back down, clearly torn between walking away and staying to fight his point. He scoffed at the word journalism, saying it felt more like he'd been invited under false pretenses. Jennifer shot back just as sharply, saying the only pretense was that he'd come prepared for an honest conversation. She added that she hadn't realized honesty was off limits. Luke's voice rose, making the audience visibly uneasy, as he said he was tired of being painted as a villain every time diversity came up. He insisted he'd never hurt anyone's career or spoken badly about any artist, no matter their background. Asterisk Jennifer leaned forward, her eyes locked on his, and asked the question that shifted the room again. Had he ever used his platform to help others, to lift voices that might otherwise go unheard? Luke answered immediately, more sharply than he intended, saying that wasn't his job. His job, he said, was to make music, to stay true to who he was and where he came from. He couldn't be responsible for fixing every problem in the industry. The silence that followed felt overwhelming, as if even the crew sensed they were witnessing a moment that would be replayed and debated for years. Asterisk when Jennifer spoke again. Her voice was quieter, but carried more weight. She said she wasn't asking him to fix everything, but questioned whether being in a position of privilege came with some responsibility. Luke laughed bitterly and pushed back hard, describing his upbringing on a peanut farm in Georgia. Working after school, watching his parents struggle, playing dive bars for years, sleeping in his truck, and scraping by on gas station food. Jennifer responded calmly, saying she wasn't diminishing his journey, but pointed out that his real struggles didn't erase the advantages he had in a genre that historically favored people who looked like him. Asterisk Luke pointed at her, his tone accusatory now, saying that was what it was really about. Not his music, not his journey, but his skin color. He accused her of reducing everything he'd worked for into something he had no control over. Jennifer's composure cracked slightly as she insisted that wasn't what she meant. She said his hard work and talent could be acknowledged, while still recognizing that others faced barriers he didn't. Luke demanded to know what she actually wanted from him. Should he apologize for his success? Step aside. Make room for someone else. The question hung in the air, weighted with years of private industry debates now spilling into public view. Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and said she wanted him to engage with the conversation, to acknowledge the issues existed and recognize that his influence gave him a chance to be part of a solution. Luke's voice grew louder, his accent thick with emotion, as he asked what solution she was even talking about. He questioned whether the problem was simply that country music appealed to a certain demographic, and asked why that needed fixing. Jennifer matched his intensity, saying the real problem was talented artists being overlooked or pushed out because they didn't fit a narrow image. Luke stood up again, this time decisively, and said he was done. He said he'd come to talk about music, connect with fans, and enjoy himself, not to be lectured or made to feel guilty for his success. Jennifer stood too, saying no one was asking him to feel guilty, only to care and to help make things better. Luke fired back, asking better for whom, arguing that making things better for some seemed to mean making others the problem. The studio crackled with tension as cameras captured an interview completely off the rails. Jennifer accused Luke of twisting her words, insisting she never said he was the problem, but that refusing to engage with these issues was part of it. Luke shot back, gesturing emphatically, saying he wasn't denying anything existed, only that he shouldn't have to carry the weight of every social issue simply because he was successful in country music. I'm an entertainer, not a politician, Luke said, trying to steady himself. But Jennifer pressed on, stepping slightly closer, her voice intense and unwavering. She told him that whether he wanted the responsibility or not, influence came with the territory. His words mattered, his actions mattered, and even his silence mattered. Luke's face flushed as the last remnants of his carefully maintained public persona fell away. He fired back, asking why none of his music counted. Why the joy he brought to millions seemed invisible. Why his charitable donations, disaster relief efforts, and support for causes he believed in were being ignored. He demanded to know why none of that mattered. Jennifer tried to respond, saying that it did matter, but Luke cut her off. He said it didn't feel like it mattered at all. It felt as if everything he had done was meaningless compared to what he hadn't said about issues he never believed were his responsibility to address. Jennifer's professional mask slipped further, revealing raw conviction beneath. She told him that when someone had a platform as large as his, everything became their responsibility. Luke snapped back, calling that idea ridiculous. He said he never signed up to be a spokesperson or a symbol for social change. He signed up to sing songs and make people happy, and he insisted that should be enough. Jennifer repeated his words with disbelief, pointing out that incredibly talented artists couldn't even get radio play because they didn't fit outdated ideas of what country music was supposed to look or sound like. She asked if simply making people happy was really enough in the face of that reality. Luke threw his hands up, accusing her of implying that he was personally responsible for other people not getting opportunities, as if his success somehow took something away from others. When Jennifer bluntly replied that, in some ways, it did, the words landed like a physical blow. The audience gasped, phones came out, and the camera operators leaned in, knowing they were capturing something explosive. Luke stared at her, his face cycling through shock, anger, hurt, and finally betrayal. He said it was unbelievable that his success was now being framed as a problem, that a lifetime of work was somehow harming others. Jennifer tried to clarify, but Luke wouldn't let her finish. He said that was exactly what she had just told him, that she had reduced everything he'd built, every song, every show, every connection with fans into him being an obstacle for someone else. When Jennifer tried to interrupt, Luke raised his voice, saying he had been listening the entire time. Listening as she tore apart his character, his work, and his career, simply because he wouldn't say the exact words. She wanted about issues he never claimed expertise in. Jennifer pushed back, her voice rising as well, saying she wasn't tearing down his career, but that he couldn't ignore how the industry worked or pretend systemic issues didn't exist just because they hadn't affected him personally. Luke repeated the phrase systemic issues with visible disgust, saying the real systemic issue was being forced to defend his entire life's work because he didn't want to be dragged into political debates. He said it was being told his success was illegitimate or harmful simply because others hadn't had the same opportunities. When Jennifer tried to respond again, Luke cut her off sharply, declaring he was done with the conversation, the interview, and pretending this was normal. He moved toward the edge of the set, clearly preparing to leave. Jennifer called after him, concern breaking through her frustration, saying they could still work through it and have a real conversation. Luke turned back, his eyes filled with frustration and disappointment, and told her this had never been a conversation. He said it felt like an interrogation, like she had already decided what he should think, say, and feel guilty about, and then attacked him when he didn't comply. Jennifer protested weakly that she hadn't attacked him, but her conviction was gone. Luke replied quietly, his voice now more cutting than when he'd been shouting. He said she had told him his success took opportunities away from others, questioned whether he deserved what he'd achieved, and made it clear that nothing he'd done mattered unless he became an activist for her causes. He said if that wasn't an attack, he didn't know what was. The studio fell completely silent, the hum of equipment the only sound left, as everyone realized they were witnessing a moment that would be replayed and dissected for years. Jennifer stepped toward him, her hands raised in a gesture that was part apology and part plea. She said there had been a misunderstanding and insisted she never meant to suggest he didn't deserve his success. Luke answered with exhaustion in his voice, saying that maybe she hadn't meant it directly, but that was exactly how it came across. Luke exhaled sharply and said that, honestly, he had expected better from her. He told Jennifer that he thought she, of all people, would understand what it felt like to have achievements questioned, to have success attributed to something other than talent and hard work. The comparison visibly struck her, and for a brief moment, her composure cracked completely. She told him that was exactly why she was asking these questions, because she did know what it was like. She knew what it meant to have doors closed, to have her abilities doubted, and to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Luke shot back immediately, his frustration bleeding through every word, asking why she was now doing the same thing to him. He demanded to know why his achievements, his character, and his right to be where he was were being questioned. Jennifer responded with strained passion, saying it was because he had the power to open doors for others, because his voice could make a difference for artists facing the same struggles and barriers she once faced. Luke laughed bitterly and said that because he'd been successful, he was now apparently obligated to become a spokesperson for every cause and every issue in the industry. He said that wasn't fair and it wasn't reasonable. Jennifer's voice rose, all traces of calm professionalism gone. She said what wasn't fair was talented artists being shut out of a genre they loved because they didn't fit a narrow definition of what country music should look like. What wasn't fair, she continued, was radio programmers deciding certain voices didn't belong. Luke fired back, asking what she thought he could do about radio programmers. Whether she really believed he controlled what got played? Jennifer answered with a mix of hope and desperation, saying he could speak up, use his influence, relationships, and platform to advocate for change. Luke demanded to know the cost of that. He asked if it meant risking his career, alienating his fan base, and turning himself into a political figure instead of an entertainer. He questioned why he should have to sacrifice what he'd built to fight battles he never signed up for. The raw honesty of the question seemed to catch Jennifer off guard. And for a moment, the studio was filled only with the sound of cameras rolling and hushed whispers from the audience. Finally, Jennifer said quietly but firmly that it was the right thing to do. Luke looked at her for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried sadness rather than anger. He asked who decided what the right thing was, her, or people who believed anyone with success was obligated to use it in approved ways. Jennifer replied that it was about basic human decency, but Luke shook his head. He said basic human decency was treating people with respect, which he had always done. It was choosing to focus on art instead of politics, and not ambushing a guest with accusations and implications. Luke turned and started walking toward the exit again, this time with unmistakable determination. He said he had come to promote his music and talk about something that brought joy to people's lives. And instead, he had been lectured, criticized, and made to feel as though everything he'd achieved was somehow tainted. Jennifer called after him, genuine distress in her voice, begging him not to leave and insisting they could still find common ground. Luke paused at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. He told her the real problem was that she didn't want dialogue. She wanted compliance. He said she wanted him to say what she believed he should say, believe what she believed, and act the way she thought he should act. That, he said, wasn't dialogue, it was indoctrination. Jennifer protested, but Luke cut her off, saying the saddest part was that she was so focused on what she wanted him to do that she completely ignored what he was doing. He said she was determined to turn him into an activist, while overlooking the fact that he was an artist who brought happiness to millions of people every day. Luke's voice grew steadier and more confident as he spoke about his music helping people through divorces, deaths, and the hardest moments of their lives. He said his concerts brought families together and created memories that lasted lifetimes, and that mattered. It had value, and he wasn't going to let anyone make him feel ashamed of it because it didn't fit a political agenda. When Jennifer tried to respond, Luke raised his hand to stop her and said he was done. He said he was done being made to feel guilty for his success, and done being told that who he was and what he'd accomplished wasn't enough unless he became something he never wanted to be. With that. Luke Bryan walked off the set, leaving Jennifer Hudson standing alone under the studio lights, facing an audience frozen in stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of what had become one of the most explosive television interviews in recent memory. The confrontation exposed deep divisions over success, responsibility, and the role of artists in social change, raising uncomfortable questions about whether achievement automatically comes with obligation, and whether choosing not to be political is itself a political act.